Quarantine with You, Part 1. I got depressed due to the lockdown. I'm an overly social person, and being told that I had to limit my social life was pure torture. I lacked that human touch, to laugh with my friends once again, but that was all substituted with Zoom calls. So when the restrictions eased up a bit, I got carried away a little. My close friendship group consisted of me, Liam, Anthony, Sandra, and Chloe. Anthony and I are the two gay ones in our friendship circle. For some reason, when Anthony joined our group a year ago, my best friend Liam urged me to get to know him further and maybe date him, but I wasn't that interested since I wasn't over my last relationship. That didn't stop me and Anthony from forming a close friendship though. During the lockdown, we got very close because the both of us were very social and couldn't spend a lot of time without some human interaction. He lived in the same building as me, so we decided to meet up for coffee once the restrictions loosened up a bit. The day came, and we decided to meet up for some coffee. We tried to adhere to the rules, of course, but it was difficult since we were both so touch-starved. We ended up hugging several times when no one was watching. It felt a bit mischievous, but wickedly good to do so. I should not have done that, but who could blame me? Weeks without seeing anyone, only going to and from the shop, I was going mad. At the end of our coffee date, we went our separate ways, and before that, we hugged again. I noticed that he was a bit pale though, and I asked him about it. But he said he was fine, and there was nothing wrong, so of course I believed him. I went to bed and I was fine, but the next morning I wasn't feeling so well. I felt as if my throat was a bit scratchy, and as the day progressed, I started to find it difficult to breathe. I later got a message from him telling me that he had started feeling terrible last night, and so he had a rapid test done. And guess what? He had COVID. I told him of my symptoms too, and I knew that there was a high chance of me being positive. We both realized that we had to quarantine for 2 weeks, which was torture for us. The restrictions were just easing up, and we had gotten COVID. We told our friends about it, and after chastising us for not being safe, we got a lot of sympathy. Then Chloe joked that we would never survive being alone for that long without even going to the store. We had to quarantine together. We thought that was a fantastic idea, of course. He was only a few floors below me, and I knew I wouldn't be able to survive 2 weeks in isolation. So the both of us decided that we would just quarantine together. I made sure that I didn't interact with anyone on the way there, of course, as irresponsible and selfish as my actions were. And I wasn't even sure that I had it yet anyways. I hadn't gotten tested yet, it was just a suspicion. When I got there, he was looking so miserable, and his nose looked so puffy. "Well, you look how I feel," I said. He glared at me and laughed. I put my stuff in his room since he told me that he wouldn't let me take the couch. I had my test done that day, and the results would arrive the next day. We spent the day suffering from our symptoms. It was terrible, I tell you. I felt as if I was never going to be okay again, but being with him made things a whole lot better. My mother loves home remedies, and I learned a few things from her when I was growing up. She had this remedy of squeezing lemons and adding salt, then drinking them and putting some in your nose. I laughed as much as my condition would allow me when I saw how he reacted to the lemons in his nose. "Oh, you'll pay for that," he sputtered. "That is for giving me COVID," I laughed. He rolled his eyes. "Well, you couldn't keep your hands off me," he smirked. "Oh, don't flatter yourself," I laughed as a cough shook me. "I think I'm very huggable. I mean, look at me. Who could resist this?" He grinned. He wasn't wrong. He had tanned skin, chestnut eyes, and a very strong jawline. The kind of looks that turned heads wherever he went. But what did I care? He was my friend, and our relationship was good. I didn't think he saw me in any other way. That night, we couldn't sleep. I found myself in a lucid state. I could barely tell if I was awake or not. I noticed that he was experiencing the same beside me, and sweating a lot. I got up and soaked some towels in hot water for the both of us, and went back to him. I gave him one dab on his nose, as my mom had told me to do when I told her I had corona. That was after she scolded me to within an inch of my life for being so irresponsible, which I took without complaint. When we woke up the next morning, we were feeling a whole lot better, which I was glad of because it had been a hell of a night. I was feeling a bit drained though, but we helped each other to make some soup. It struck me as we were making our food and talking about random things how little I knew of him. Even though we were close, I had never spent so much time with him. It had usually been a few hours at a time, and usually there were a few friends present. We got on like a house on fire, better than we had in the past. We both regretted breaking the social distancing rules, of course, due to our shared love of human affection. We did take that time to cuddle a lot. Nothing too serious, just some innocent cuddling, because we both admitted how much we missed human contact. I really liked being in his arms though, especially when I was the little spoon. We watched series together, like lots of series. We binge watched seasons and would discuss them for hours on end. We didn't have much to do. I found that I was always happy when I was around him. We were pretty much nearly cured within a few days, but we couldn't stop isolating yet, of course. We had about a week left. Things got a bit more flirtatious within that week, much to my surprise. Sometimes I would find myself reaching out to him despite myself. I couldn't control it. Being with him felt so natural. "I swear, I have no idea how you survived without my hugs all your life," he laughed. "Ugh, don't flatter yourself. It's you who is so affectionate with me. When our self-quarantine ends, I'll have to get you a bear to replace me," I chuckled. "A bear, you say?" "I don't know, I kinda like the real deal," he smiled. I blushed a little. I didn't get why I was blushing so much though. He was just my friend, nothing was going on between us. and it's not always a good idea to get involved with one's friends. Oh really? Good to know, I smiled. Thanks by the way for coming here and spending time with me. You've made it less lonely, he smiled. I knew you would probably become depressed, like I would have been, I said. What are you gonna do when the lockdown's over, he asked me. I don't know, go partying, maybe a concert or two? I kinda miss that, I said. Me too, but most of all I miss dating, he said. Oh, I had forgotten how much of a flirt you are, I laughed. I'm not a flirt, I just enjoy dating. Maybe one day I'll meet my Prince Charming. That reminds me, why don't you ever date, he asked me. Oh, it's nothing, I guess I haven't found the right guy yet. My last relationship messed me up, I said. He nodded in understanding. We had never been in such a deep conversation before. I didn't like talking about my ex. I'd been trying to get over the pain he put me through for the past 2 years. He made me afraid to love again, and he was my first love. I'd been so scared to come out for so many years, then I met him and things changed. He gave me the courage to love and to come out, which I'll always be grateful for. But he also brought out all my insecurities at the end of the relationship. It wasn't fun to walk in on him with another guy. The feeling that I got when I saw him is one that I'll never be able to forget. Because I got that feeling several times when I forgave him, and he did it over and over again. He made me lose trust in love. I've been trying to heal for 2 years now, I said shortly. I didn't like to talk about it. None of our friends knew about what happened to me, only Liam, the one I had known the longest, but he had been trying to get me to date again for a while now. But yeah, I was so scared. I understand. You'll love again. He was your first love, right? He asked. Yes, how'd you know that? I asked him. Because I went through the same with mine, when I was just 16 years old. But here I am, I healed and opened up my heart again, he said. And how do you do that? I asked him. You take a chance, he smiled at me. I thought about it for a moment. But the thought of putting myself out there once again was so scary. I didn't think I could ever love again. And what if they took advantage of me again? Your first love is your toughest lesson in love, he said. When did you get so wise? I chuckled. He pretended to try to pinch me and I jumped away from him. I went back to him and rested my head on his shoulder. I felt so safe with him, like we were the only 2 people in the world. Maybe we were, for we were stuck in our little world and there was no one else but us. Thank you. I know we've only known each other for a year, but I feel like I've known you forever, I said. If only I had an open heart. Maybe we could have been more, was what I wanted to add. But I held back my thoughts. I was being ridiculous, of course. He was just a friend, and we couldn't be anything more. And if things didn't work out, it would make things very awkward between us. What didn't make things better was that Liam was trying to play matchmaker with us. He thought he was being slick, but I saw it. He was always asking me if Anthony and I were getting closer nearly every day and saying that I should date someone like Anthony. You would think that he was trying to sell me a car with the way he blabbered onto me about Anthony. I only hoped that he was not doing the same to poor Anthony. One thing about me and my friends was that they were too comfortable with each other. Like there were no boundaries set. I ignored Liam most of the time and spent the rest of the week with Anthony. When we were feeling a bit better and we had a few days left, we decided to work out a bit. From the way that we had been eating, we both felt very unhealthy. I almost regretted the idea of working out when I saw his body, of course. I'm probably exaggerating, but I felt as if he had come out of some magazine. I couldn't stop staring. Of course, I was human, and I appreciated it when a man looked good. He didn't fail to see me gawking, of course, and I blushed when he caught my eye. I looked away from him and did my exercises, or tried to. But I have to say, he made it very hard to concentrate. After we were done, I made my way to the kitchen to get some water because I was feeling a bit flustered. I didn't get why I was having this reaction to him. There was nothing special about biceps. Heck, I'd seen my fair share of them in my life. But it had been so long since a guy affected me in that way. It didn't help that he made me nervous, with the way he stared at me sometimes. It was in his nature to be flirtatious and overconfident. I didn't get why I was suddenly getting so affected. I was an idiot. I went back to the living room and gave him a glass of water. When he tipped his head back to drink the water, some of it slipped onto his white vest. He sighed and took off his shirt. I'd been controlling myself for a while because he had been wearing a vest, but he was making it so damn difficult. You okay? You look like you might faint, he chuckled. I'm alright. Oh, what do you mean? I laughed. Or at least tried to. I became aware of the way that he was looking at me, as if he knew something I didn't know. Or maybe I knew it too. Am I making you nervous? He said as he came closer to me. Of course not. I have no idea what you're talking about, I said as I swallowed deeply. I'd been trying to ignore how nervous he made me for the whole week. I had made excuses and told myself when I was getting hot with him around that it was just a COVID symptom, but was it? He walked closer to me and I backed away, until I hit a wall and there was nowhere for me to go. He came closer to me and whispered, "Maybe you are nervous around me," he said. "It's all in your head," I scoffed. Then he leaned in and kissed me softly. I was very surprised by the emotions that I was feeling as he kissed me. His hands pinned mine against the wall, and he kissed me slow and hard. I kissed him back, for I was so hungry for his touch. He'd made me feel something that I never felt before. Maybe I liked him? As soon as I had that thought, I pushed him away from me. He had a sudden look of shock on his face. I'm so sorry. I don't know why I did that. Who knows what came over me, he said. It's fine. It was a mistake. I can't do this. I'm not ready for all this. I avoided looking at him. There were so many reasons why our kiss wasn't supposed to happen. We were good friends, and I wasn't over my ex. Nor was I going to do something casual like friends with benefits. I was an idiot. These situations usually ended in tears. Things were very awkward between us after the kiss, of course. The next day was the day I was going to leave as long as the results came back negative. And I hoped that they would, because it felt very awkward to be around him after everything that happened between us. So I went home the next day as soon as I got my results, and I couldn't stop thinking about our kiss. I'd been avoiding all things romantic for as long as I could, and I was planning on closing my heart for a very long time. I was afraid of getting hurt, because that's what people did. They pretended to love and care for you while they're stabbing you in the back. I knew that Anthony was a good guy, but still, I decided to use my head concerning that situation. I spoke to him about it and apologized for the kiss, but things were still awkward between us, and I couldn't forget the 2 weeks that I'd spent with him. Never had I ever been so carefree in my life before. He got me, with my weird desire for affection and all. We barely saw each other for the next few weeks. Then, when things were easing up with the virus, Liam invited both of us for his birthday. It was going to be a small event with only our close friends. I couldn't refuse, of course, and I knew that he was going to be there. I dreaded the day because I couldn't stop thinking about him. To be continued.